Welcome, everybody, to the Blind Ambitions podcast. I am so excited. This is the first ever remote Zoom recording of the Blind Ambitions podcast. You're going to see a lot more of these so that we can get amazing guests to you faster and share more and more stories. But today, I have two incredible guys with me. We have Robbie Edge and Sean Sullivan. They are partners at Empower, which is an amazing EPC I've been hearing so many things about. I'm not going to share too much because we really want to get in the slow roll to let everybody out there know about these guys. I feel like they're a little bit of a hidden gem right now. At least that's my perspective. Jumping in, Robbie and Sean, thank you so much for making time to join us today. I would love for you each to just give us a quick intro, your background, maybe high level overview where you come from, your intro into solar, and then, what brings you here today.
Go ahead, Sean. Well, thanks for having us, Abby, and we're happy to be on the show today. I started my sales career really in direct sales and got into alarm sales, and like many that are selling in solar, made the transition to solar. I owned an ADT alarm franchise for 25 years and operated in a couple of states and multiple cities. And it's funny, the way I got into solar, I actually had a colleague from the alarm industry reach out to me by phone and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to take you out to lunch." And I was like, "Man, I'm too busy. I don't have time to, hear a sales pitch or anything." And he called me the next week. He said, I'm here. You've got to eat lunch. You're going to lunch with me. So he closed me out. We went to lunch, and he pitched me on what solar was. And I just thought it was the most unique selling proposition I'd ever heard of. To be able to basically replace something that a customer is already having to pay for and converting it from something they're renting to something that they're going to own. I just thought it was just incredible. And I slowly dipped my toe in the water and ended up becoming their first sales dealer in South Carolina. And, like many have experienced with the solar coaster, worked with two companies for the first year. Both of them ended up closing shop, and I had customers stranded, and one went out of business and couldn't pay bills. And, at that point, after the first year, I realized I had to take control. And in order to control, both the customer experience and my livelihood, I had to control the finance. So I moved into the installation side.
Yeah. For me, Abby, I've got a little different journey to get into solar. I was actually I was a tennis pro for about 25 years, and worked with young aspiring youth players that were trying to get into college and maybe even go pro, things like that. Absolutely loved what I did. I wouldn't trade a second for it. But I remember we were actually just talking to Joe about this the other day. It was kind of funny. I was dating this girl at the time, and this was probably about 10 years ago. And we were out at dinner after dating for about a year one night, and I looked at her and she just had this funny look on her face, just kind of goofy look. And it hit me all of a sudden. I was like, this girl actually kind of likes me, this is going somewhere. And it hit me, I was like, I'm a tennis pro. I said, I don't make very much money, so I said, I've got to figure out something, and
I love that.
Anyway, it was kind of interesting. She was a really good tennis player too. And she encouraged me to, I was always entrepreneurial anyway, and she'd encouraged me to do some things. So we actually opened some retail stores, which if you've ever been in retail, sports retail, that's something you should never, ever do. And, but we had a lot of success with it for a little while. And then all of a sudden, that industry changed a little bit. A lot of online retail came about in that specialty retail, and we got crushed. And some people know this, but towards the end, I had 4 retail stores, and towards the end, I had to close them all. And I lost everything. I was living in the back of my original store on an air mattress with my 2 dogs, taking showers at the YMCA next door, trying to keep this thing alive. And, it eventually overtook me. I just couldn't figure it out. We just got crushed. And that led to me, for a few months, kind of trying to figure out how the heck I was going to get my life back together. And I'd never been in a situation like that. I'd always been an entrepreneur, and never had anything like that happen. And then just one day I ran across this guy, totally other story I could tell, but ran across a guy one day, and they introduced me to the solar industry and took him a month and a half to get me to even try it. And then when I did, man, it was just an incredible opportunity that I found. I'd never seen anything like that, and had a lot of success in the sales realm. One of the top salespeople in the country for a few years. And then I built some good teams and things like that. And then kind of eventually, like Sean, just repeatedly had some bad experiences and, decided we had to take it under our own wing if we wanted to really control what was going on with the customer and our own salespeople. So that's kind of where we ended up meeting up not long after.
Wow. Robbie, I didn't realize that about your story. And that's such a cool story. It's always feels awkward to tell somebody, oh yeah, your pain is really cool. That's a cool story. I think it's cool because I have my own similar, like you're speaking to my heart, but I'm of the opinion, the very strong opinion that those really rough bottom stories are what turn us into amazing leaders and business owners in the future. And so I think I wear mine like a badge of pride, and hopefully you do too. But we'll have to hear a bit more about that. I'm excited to circle back. Yeah. And Sean, I loved what you touched on, which is, here's how I would word it. The solar industry, for me, coming from like contracting, which is still super, contracting, trade focused, at least from my perspective on the build side, solar has this magic built-in purpose to it that almost just sort of taps into, oh, wow, I don't have to have a career or even build a business that's just, only about making money. Like, I think there's so many cool opportunities to feel like you're helping other people, giving them incredible opportunities like other people did to you too. Come in this industry, come in this space. There's so many good things going on, and it's been a rough minute, which we've all felt, but I still think that rings so true about the space, and hopefully you guys feel that too.
Definitely.
So let's jump into Empower. Give me and give the listeners everything. What markets are you in? What are you focused in? What are some fun differentiators? What should we know about Empower? I've heard phenomenal things.
Well, I think it really boils down to where we come from. We both, Robbie and I both come from the sales side of the business initially. And when we teamed up in early 2020 to form the current Empower, we were vertically integrated. So, being vertically integrated, I think really gives us a very unique perspective in that, we understand the pain points for sales. We understand the pain points for operations and the pain points for the install side. And, as we, kept building Empower and, reinventing and reevaluating and trying to hone it to what it is today, we've always kept that in mind. What is important? It's important. We believe in transparency, making sure everybody's on the same page. We believe in strong and constant communication, both with our sales partners, our customers, our install partners, because if you can be very deliberate and everybody's on the same page, it just gives you an opportunity to be successful in a business that's very difficult. So, that.
I think, just to reiterate, I think, the sales background, I think, is one of the biggest things that has made us successful at what we're doing today. I think, a lot of times there's a framework, a mindset in building an EPC. Sometimes it comes from an operational framework, an operational mindset. Sometimes it comes from a sales mindset that's trying to get there. It's not that, our sales background is obviously just unique. I think there are quite a few people that have done what we have done as well. But I think, the fact that we've been able to scale that, grow that, have a proven track record in not only growing the EPC, but also doing it with a very supportive nature to our sales partners that our partners are excited about. I think that's what I'm the most excited about, that we've been able to have proof of concept that we're doing it at a very high level, and we're having a lot of success that way. But I agree with Sean. I think just the level of services that we offer and everything that we've done and all the things that we built into the business for sales partners come from a sales mindset. Knowing what was important to us, things that frustrated us coming into building an EPC. I think it just gave us a very unique perspective in how to do that. And we understand the sales mind, when they're coming at us and want something new or trying, we're open-minded to it. We're not shutting things down right off the rip. So
absolutely. Yeah. I could definitely see the value there, from where I've come from in my experience too. What markets are you guys serving right now? And are you looking for new sales partners?
We're always looking for new sales partners. Something we discussed with Joe on his podcast the other day is we want to find the right sales partners too.
Okay.
Right? We definitely want to grow very responsibly, right? I know a lot of EPCs, they're always just looking at intake revenue, and not necessarily our model. We're not in that position where we need revenue like that. We want to grow, we want that revenue, but we don't have to have it to survive, right? But as far as markets, we're in 15 states currently.
Oh, wow.
And we've got 2 or 3 more on the horizon. But right now, we're in the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania,
Very cool.
Virginia, Massachusetts, Illinois, Texas, Arizona, Kentucky, Missouri, you name it.
That was an impressive rip off the list.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's great. You guys gave me such a great lean into some of these questions here. You both come from more of a sales background here. What do you think would be maybe one of the biggest mindset shifts that you had to make when transitioning or adding in the build side?
I personally don't feel like it was that much of a mind shift, because the techniques, the lessons that were learned in sales at an early age, like for me specifically, it transitions over to our operational staff, and we're bringing in new people. The way we have set up our training and is around, having the right type of attitude to get things done. You can go to the DMV and you can see people sitting there just absolutely miserable, doing what they're doing. Hopefully I'm not offending anybody at DMV, but having that do whatever it takes mindset, charging it down, not taking no for an answer. That's the type of attitude that we try to instill in our operational staff, so that when they're submitting permits and they're getting pushback from an AHJ or someone that is giving them a hard time, that they're relentless. The HOA submissions, they're on the HOAs for approvals. Right. And I think that just really being a solid planner, that is, to me, that is probably the biggest aspect of being successful in an EPC, is you have to have a clear plan. There's no question about it.
Right.
I think the people, we've been very fortunate, the people that we have brought on, share a very common vision for us of not only what we want to achieve and how we want our sales partners treated and things like that, our customers treated, but I think just the kind of attitude, again, that we have ourselves and kind of that we expect, from our organization, is to, not settle, push, charge things down, like Sean said, and make sure we push through barriers. I think that's why we've been very successful. We just got a lot of people that are go-getters, man. It's really incredible. Yeah.
Love that. One team, one dream, focused around what should be, right, excellence to the consumer and the product and the delivery. I love it. I think you're dead on. I think that the right people on the team really should be looking at that core vision. And I love that. Doesn't require a big.
I will say one thing on my mindset that did have to shift a little bit, and I'll say this jokingly because Sean was on the operations side before me. I had to get my mindset wrapped around a little bit about, okay, this is what like sales expects, and this is what operations can deliver. And kind of get those things in alignment.
There's always that gap, right?
When you're first doing it, it's like there's a big chasm. In between.
Yeah.
We've done an incredible job of narrowing that down a lot, and getting.
I love that. That's so important for any business too. Even a completely fully internal company where you've got representatives at the table that are head down focused just in their area. It's really easy for that to feel more like a chasm. Good on you. I got another one here for you. So, I think I'm going to slip another one here in the middle. I talk to a lot of folks. Specifically from the sales side, that will reach out and want to try to maybe get into the build side. But more often than not, there's a ton of hesitance. Can you think of anything, what maybe would come to mind for you, and what gave you confidence to move into the full stack, the build part, and maybe your outlook on it?
Yeah, confidence part, I think, is easy to answer for myself. Really, again, it kind of goes back to the people that kind of had it surrounded by, right? So, originally when we started Empower, as it is today, this is about 5 years ago, I was personally surrounded by a lot of people who had the same vision that I had, which was, hey, look, we're very tired of what we've experienced in the industry so far.
Yeah.
And we know the only way to own that and have that what we want and what we want for our customers is for us to take total control of that. So now a lot of the people that I was with at that time, we didn't know how we would do that exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then not shortly after Sean and I met, right? But the point is everybody in that boat with me at that time had that same vision. We want to control, we want to offer something better, we want to be unique in the space, right? And so that gave me a lot of confidence. Now, then the rubber had to meet the road, right? And we had to start figuring out how to do that. And then that's, where Sean and I met, and just to be honest, again, like some of the people that we have in the organization have the exact same personality types that we have. And that gave me a lot of confidence. They're very process-driven people. They are very open-minded to make sure that, we want to, whatever we say we can do, we can do, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that type of attitude gave me a lot of confidence, even though, just to be honest, I was very lost at the very beginning. I joke about this all the time, but the first year it kind of went like you always think it would go when a bunch of sales guys open up an EPC or a full stack company. But, since then, as Sean mentioned earlier, we've kept reevaluating and improving, and I think we're one of the best in the country right now at what we do, for sure.
Abby, for me, it was a little bit of a different, introduction into becoming an EPC because, I've run an alarm business for 25 years. I had, multiple technicians, and it's a lot different type of business, but it has some similarities.
Sure.
And really, for me, when I first got into solar, and again, I just fell in love with it. I made a decision, after 6 months, I'm going to sell this 20-plus-year-old business so I can focus 100% into doing this. But even doing so, I will never forget the first time someone told me that the install crew is made up of electricians and roofers. It scared the hell out of me. It's like, oh my gosh, an electrician and a roofer going and drilling holes in people's houses.
Yep.
And, I was very hesitant to jump into the install side until I had a really good, solid understanding of, the intricacies related to it. But for me, it was more out of necessity. I had been with two companies that had hit the ground running, sold a bunch of jobs. Very few of them were getting to the roof. Very few of them, were being communicated with. And again, I'd made a big decision to make that transition into something that was very safe for me that I'd done for a long time. And I just knew for me to be able to succeed in this, I had to control that other aspect. So it was more for me a necessity to do it.
I love that. That's such a great answer. Piggybacking right off of that, what are some hard-learned lessons in your previous lives before solar, previous roles, previous experience? What are some hard-earned lessons that you brought into these roles that served you well in stepping into what is some pretty big shoes of a national EPC? Good on you.
I think for me, some lessons that I've learned in my many years of being an entrepreneur is, to as much as possible, you've got to be able to expect the unexpected. These law things are going to happen, and as much as you try to plan for things and be one step ahead, you have to put yourself in a position to be agile enough to be able to pivot, based on a market condition changing that's out of your control. And that's very prevalent in solar. It's, something I've dealt with for the 10 years I've been in it, time and time again.
Yeah.
I think that another issue that I see with companies that are doing what we do is I think that they build so much weight. They add so much weight as it relates to fixed cost. And, the nature of sales in this industry is, they're somewhat cyclical. They're going to have higher months and lower months. And I think that, being able to manage your staff and the size of your staff effectively is also something that I've learned, many, many times over.
Great advice.
Yeah, I think the way we've been building the company the last few years is to be nimble enough to adjust to what's going on in the industry, right? We've been very fortunate to remain pretty much debt free, or as little debt as we can, and we built the company to be very nimble, so it's definitely worked pretty well for us in that regard. A lesson for me, I think, again, I'll say this jokingly, I think, it's really been more about listening to the people that are in the boat with me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of a hard charging stuff. You can laugh at this. I'm stubborn. Is anybody?
No.
Yeah. I'm stubborn, and if I see something that I think is the right move for us, you know, I'm going to charge at it pretty hard because I know what the reward is on the other side of that risk. You know?
Right.
But you know, if you kind of think of like a race car driver coming in with the engine smoking and the weird, you know, the fire, you know, I'll get us there. But you know, the reality is I might bring it in like that, but you know, kind of dialing back and starting to trust and listen and be patient and you know, listen to the advice of all the people that we have brought in that we can trust now. You know, allows us to come in with a fine-tuned Ferrari as opposed to the wheels on fire. You know? And it's good. So I think it's more about just listening and being more collaborative in our vision, you know, more so than I had been in the past.
I love that. I just got off of a conversation earlier this morning talking about basically how to grow and succeed in early days. And, you know, I couldn't get past the extremely simple answer that was just sort of right here that I feel like people don't talk about enough, which is, are you asking for feedback? Are you getting feedback and asking people, do you like my approach? What do you not like about what we're doing? How can we, you know, cater? I think a lot of people are so concerned about either getting bad feedback or they're just really locked in thinking they know. You know, I think open-mindedness and listening is so important. It's such an overlooked hack, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, it's tough. That was a tough lesson for me. I would hear the feedback, but I'd just be like, all right, thanks for the feedback.
I've been there. Like every good entrepreneur, right?
I'm better.
What would you guys say are some signals that the business is doing well? Things are going well and you're doing right. You know, is this KPIs that, you know, you're tracking for success of the business? Would love for you to give advice to some of the others out there. What do you look to say to be your North Star for success in your EPC?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think, you know, we have some slightly different responsibilities in the organization right now, but I think for me, you know, a lot of it is centered around, you know, our sales partner feedback, right? So we have some great people, you know, that kind of head up that partner success roles and things like that. And I'm always kind of got my ear to the ground about like, what is the feedback that we're receiving? And the feedback, I mean, obviously right now we're having some incredible feedback as to like, you know, how we're performing as an EPC and the services that we're offering and the support we're offering sales partners. So we're getting this incredible feedback. That is always like, again, a huge piece for me. Because just like, you know, we take this approach with like the customer itself, the homeowner, you know, if we can communicate at such a high level with them, you know, we know that we're going to have a high level of success with them, right? And it's kind of the same thing. If we're getting positive feedback, we know that, you know, partners are enjoying the service that we're providing. If we keep hearing that, we know we're succeeding, and that will lead to long-term success for us as a business. But I think like, you know, probably things for us, you know, like, you know, I'm looking at things like what we call like our DRCs, our deal review complete rates. I don't pay attention to sales. We really pay attention to more to like how many of those sales are making it into the pipeline.
Love that.
Like cash flow, those types of, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think from my side, I think it's a lot more about the satisfaction from the sales partners for sure.
I think also, you know, and Robbie touched a little bit on this, you know, our customer experience is very important to us. And we know that that's very important for our sales partners too, because at the end of the day, you know, you want to be able to look and talk and reply to the customer after the install and the project's done. And I find that, you know, in many times, a lot of the feedback we've gotten from sales orgs or salespeople in general is, you know, the way that the project, you know, progressed through the EPC was just so awful. The customer experience was so awful. The sales reps didn't even feel like they could even talk to the customer you know, after the project was done. So, you know, I think that, you know, other things to consider are, you know, some of the black eyes that the industry's gotten over the last couple of years with customers being orphaned and, you know, companies going out of business, and for whatever reason they went out of business. But, you know, one key metric that we pay very, very close attention to is our installed PTO. Because at the end of the day, the quicker that we can get the job turned on, the better the experience is going to end up being for the consumer. And I just actually ran a bunch of KPIs just yesterday. And right now we're averaging 50 days from install to PTO, which is, it's awesome. It's really, really.
I love that. I can't express to you how happy it makes me to hear companies socializing and focusing on the speed to PTO, permission to operate, for those that are maybe a little less familiar with that terminology, because it really is the measuring stick by which we should be tracking. And I know that we've come from a little bit of a different culture in this space, and so good on you. I love that. You gave me a really good lean in, so I'm just going to pivot here because you talked about the industry. I would love to know from your perspective, what are you both seeing? What do you feel is your read on the industry landscape? What's keeping you up at night as partners? Maybe some optimism that you have. I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the industry is actually trending back to a pretty positive place, to be honest. I think there's going to be a lot of changes on the horizon, from the sales side in particular. I think, compliance now is taking a huge front center. I think, things like recheck and things like that are probably coming to try to clean up the industry to a certain degree, right? I think those are all super positive things. I think there might be some short-term, dips, from some of these things as they make the sales practices a little bit more in line with what they should be.
Yeah.
But I think overall the industry is going to become stronger for that. It's going to be, the industry from a homeowner's perspective, it's going to be more trustworthy. There's going to be less bad things out there over time, and I think that'll be a positive thing for us in general. We completely understand and believe in what protecting the homeowner. So we have kind of our own underwriting processes and things like that. But I think that's a huge thing, and I think the industry. I mean, if you still look at the penetration, of in our country, as long as those incentives stay in place and things like that, I think we're in for an incredible ride. Just to be honest,
I'm so aligned with that. I completely agree, Robbie. Thank you. What do you think, Sean?
I think a lot of the same things Robbie said. I think getting a little bit better guardrails on the sales aspect to make sure that the people that are solar being sold to are people that need to be able to be buying solar or can have the ability to buy solar. Not everybody. It's not a good fit for everybody. Let's say what it is.
Yeah, it benefits them too. That just because they can't afford it, still should benefit them.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I think the regulation, some of the regulations that we're seeing, like some of the lenders with recheck and some of the things that I believe are on the horizon, will end up. Anytime change is present, it's always hard. But normally when change happens, it ends up being for the better down the road. The thing that keeps me up at night is this thing called the solar coaster, and just not knowing what to expect as every Monday rolls around. So just trying to be as prepared as we can and keeping us in a position where we can be as successful as possible.
Yeah, the only guarantee is change, right? Unfortunately. I love that. As far as Empower standing out amongst EPC options out there, do you feel like it's been difficult to stand out? Has it been easy to stand out? And in what ways do you feel like Empower is standing out in the market?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. We were talking about that the other day. If you're listening, we'd love to obviously have a call with you to kind of show you what we're about and what we do and how we handle things. I think once we're in front of someone, I think they're absolutely blown away by how we're running this business and the services again that we offer and everything. I think it's I think one of our biggest downfalls, Abby, you and I were joking about this the other day. We're not the best at getting out there and beating our chest on the front lines and telling everybody about Empower.
Sometimes those are the best ones.
I know. I mean, it's funny. I think that's something we have to improve at to get people to know about Empower. I think the partners that are using us just absolutely know what we're about and what we're doing. And I think the other thing probably in the industry right now is I think because of what's happened over the last few years, there's been a lot of new EPCs that have kind of sprung up, right? Yeah. Some of them are small, medium sized, some of them are large, right? But the reality is I think, reps, as they're seeing these ads, flood in from on their Facebook profiles and things, I think that a lot of times now it's getting harder and harder for a sales org to kind of understand the BS versus the reality, right? Everybody's claiming these incredible timelines and red lines and their financial security and all this stuff. And the reality is, a lot of that is sales, right? And I think it's become more and more difficult, for good companies to stand out, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's probably not, as accurate as it should be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think once we talk to someone, I think they can clearly see, kind of what the differences are for sure.
Yeah, I think, again, I said it earlier, I think transparency, often we get feedback from sales organizations, sales reps that, they turn a job into an EPC. They have no idea what's going on. They're trying to communicate. It's taken days, weeks to get back with them. And, it just creates a lot of uncertainty. So I think that, through our technology that we utilize, I think that transparency aspect is a big thing. We don't hide anything. So our customer communication is visible with the reps on a rep level for their customers. And I think that, having that solid communication, we understand that one thing that we learned very early that we were failing at is the communication with the customer. And this was years and years. And, after evaluating, all the things that we felt like we could improve on, that's the one thing right there we're 100% in control of. So
I love that.
No excuse not to do that. We've instituted procedures where we have developed an entire department dedicated towards customer experience. Our customer ambassadors, they're assigned to customers. Their role is to communicate on a 7 to 10 day basis, both through calls, personal calls, emails, through automation, through our app. And, we really want them to build a relationship with the customer, over that period of time until we get to the roof. Because at the end of the day, is you could be the best EPC in the world, but at the end of the day, this is a construction project. And everything is very smooth until the install. And that's when I tend to see if something does go off the track a little bit, it tends to happen at the install. But if you built a solid relationship with the consumer, from that sale to that install date, it allows you to weather, things that might pop up that might not be the perfect scenario for the customer, because you've established that relationship with them.
Yeah, and Sean nailed it. I mean, we're communicating every 7 to 10 days with our customers through automations from the CRM. We have our own Empower app. That's a customer-facing app for the customer side for their journey. Again, and through like phone calls and texts. I mean, we're communicating with them all the time. So, but I think on the flip side of that, we do the same exact thing with our sales partners as well. So we have partner ambassadors, which is kind of an alternative role to our customer ambassadors. But partner ambassadors are meeting with sales orgs every week. We have live sales support at all times. We've got just all kinds of automations that are going out to the sales partners so they know what's going on with their projects. We've just got a lot of communication.
I love that.
Yeah.
Communication is one of those things. I think if you're outside of our space, it sounds like we're talking about something so complex and it's really so simple. No.
It's unreal.
So difficult to get right, to be consistent, to have informative, accurate communication. I feel that from where we're coming from and from this line of business, communication is very difficult, very important. It's what makes or breaks the entire experience. So I love how much emphasis you guys are putting on that. It sounds like you're absolutely focusing on the right things and are building a phenomenal organization. So good on both of you. I'm gonna move here to our last question. I feel like we've had some really, really good stuff. A lot of our listeners here on the Blind Ambitions podcast are business owners. A lot of entrepreneurs, first time, second time, third time, coming back from failures, and also in the middle of successes and are feeling some pains right now, worried about what might be to come. What would be a single piece of advice you have for other business owners, maybe their first time through, something encouraging, just your high level mantra?
I just think that, one of the things that you have to, always possess as an entrepreneur, you have to have a burning desire to succeed and not be afraid to fail. Success is not easy, and you have to charge it down day in and day out. There are going to be setbacks, and you have to expect that. You have to be prepared for that. I think that is the more well-rounded you can be, both through knowledge and learning, being a true professional in the industry that you are in, and understand not just if you're sales, not just understanding the sale, understanding the operational side, understanding the installation side, the complexity. It just makes you more well-rounded. And I think that, from a selling perspective, the more well-rounded you are when you are in front of a customer, it allows you to put yourself on a pedestal compared to others that might not have that depth of knowledge.
So true.
I think, Abby, I know you were asking a little bit about like somebody who might be going through a little bit of a hardship and trying to kind of keep their chin up, through that. I don't know if you ever watched Ted Lasso, Abby. You ever
I love Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
That's a good show. That's a good show.
Ted's got his sign up there, believe, and it's, it's so funny. I know Sean's been through this in his own life and myself, but like, I think everybody's had some hardships that they've gone through, right? And I remember like with stuff going on with, when I kind of ended up with my tennis career there, and then before I got into solar, I thought I had no idea what I was going to do. I thought I was going to end up like homeless, I was like, I'm going to be like trying to figure it out. And then even like, when we looked at like 2023, I think, where the industry was really getting ripped up.
Yeah.
And, it was a hard time to kind of keep your head up, but whatever it is that kind of you find your belief in, like for me, I know Sean as well, we have our own faith, and stuff, but, just to kind of keep in mind that things will work out, if you have faith in some of the right things. And you just, again, you got to keep plugging, you got to keep working, you got to keep, striving to achieve. And there's failures are going to happen. I think that's the thing. I mean, they are going to happen, right? We've all failed, right? It's happened, right? But the reality is, like, a lot of times from failure, better things come from that, right? As long as you're learning and you're keeping, moving forwards, I mean, you can learn and grow even stronger, right? So I think you just got to believe in that. But yeah, I mean, that's kept me going.
Stay relentless. Stay relentless.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautifully said. So good. Thank you for sharing that. We're gonna do a hard energy pivot here because you ready for my excitement? I want to talk about SolarCon.
Oh yeah.
If you have been listening to this and you're thinking, man, I need to connect with these guys, I need to hear what Empower's about, and I need to get in front of them, which you very much do. They are going to be at SolarCon with a booth and are going to be available on the floor for face-to-face relationship building. So I hope that you're going to make sure and be there. What are you guys excited for SolarCon?
Vegas. No, yes. Yes. No, we're thrilled, man. We really, again, I mentioned this earlier. I think, we built something incredible here. One of the main reasons, going back to why I'm so passionate about what we're doing, kind of kicked off of this, solar changed my life. I was in a position where I had no idea how I was going to move forwards with my life. Right. And solar gave me an opportunity that allowed me to change my own life in an incredible way, right? And that kind of led to me wanting to be a leader in this industry and things like that. And now we've just really taken that from being a sales leader to saying, hey, look, now we want to provide that opportunity for anybody who wants it, right? Yeah. And trying to make sure that companies that are trying to build the right way have the opportunity to build the right way and scale. To do that, they need a great installation partner. And that's kind of what drives me now. And that's why I'm really excited about SolarCon. I want to meet more people who have that vision. They're trying to do incredible things and just need somebody incredible to do it with.
Amen. I love it. This year's show is going to be so good. If you haven't registered yet, make sure that you are there in that building. So many incredible people from all walks of life from the industry. And I was just sharing this a bit ago with somebody else. The temperature read, the landscape from the industry that I perceived it from, Sean and I were calling it, what was it called before RE Plus?
Oh, SPI.
SPI. We were showing our solar age a bit ago, and so I have to giggle about that. But back in the SPI days, there just was really a lack of collaboration, unity, and positive working relationships among the industry. At least that's how I felt, certainly as a CEO trying to make my way in this space. And fast forward to now, I think there's been a lot of humility, a lot of change, a lot of tough times, shifting and new companies cropping up. But what I feel abundantly in the space, and what it's got me the most excited for this year, is you hit it right on the head, Robbie. Meeting new people, finding out what's happening, all the newest, greatest, and best folks like these guys. And also, there's Tony Robbins. There's going to be an incredible show on the floor where there's after parties and education galore with so much thought put into that. So I'm so grateful that you guys decided to support the show in a big way this year and are showing up and setting the bar for other people to do the same this year. It's going to be great. So make sure that you meet up with Empower at the show, find their booth, or find me and I'm going to walk you over to their booth. And Robbie, and Sean, I have very much enjoyed this conversation today. It's been amazing. I know that we are going to have some people that want to connect with you, and you're going to give me a link for a form. And I'm going to go ahead and embed that right here into social media channels and into all of my different posts. So watch for the link. Go ahead and make sure you can connect with them that way, or again at the show. And thank you both. This has been an incredible conversation.
Thanks,
Very
Abby.
much appreciate you.
Great to meet you.
Take care.
All right, take care.